Hello, everybody. This is your favorite Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. This is Here Comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell. And today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man comics from January of 1983. So, Happy New Year.
Yes, that's right. So we cover a month of Spider-Man comics every week. And this week we have a special return guest, two special return guests. First up is G.I.Jolie from the Comic Book Syndicate. Jolie, say hi.
Hi. I guess it's not so special anymore.
Yeah, the unspecial guest, I guess, right?
Unspecial 3 weeks in a row guest.
Yeah. And then we have a special guest returning from a few weeks ago, V, our pal V. Say hi, V.
Hey, how's everybody?
We're good, man. Thanks again for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, and just to recall really quickly, V, you did used to read Spider-Man comics back in the late 90s, I think, or in early 2000s, was it?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I can't remember. You would know the artist better than I do, but yeah.
John Romita Jr. He was our
That's
main
the
man.
one.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, thankfully we have some John Romita Jr. art this week. We're going to start off with Amazing Spider-Man number 236, which is it feels like this is the third time the story's ended, but it's the dramatic conclusion of the Wasp Tarantula brand epic. And I'll quickly sum this one up. Basically, it kind of just continues the story of the tarantula has been transformed into this, an actual tarantula. And he's at the Brand Corporation. And basically, Will o' the Wisp and Spider-Man are in a battle of wills, so to speak. A battle of morals about what they should do with this guy. Will o' the Wisp wants to kill... was it tarantula or... Yes. No, he wants to kill...
He wants to kill the head of Brand who turned him into the Wisp and turned Tarantula into an actual tarantula.
Because he's part of his origin, right. Okay. Right. So basically Spider-Man, what's this guy's name? He's got a funny name. Melvin. So Spider-Man grabs Melvin and basically takes off with him. And then Will o' the Wisp just basically starts chasing after him. Meanwhile, there's this other guy that's communicating with this secret guy who we don't know who it is because his face is obscured because he's sitting in a chair. And basically, the rest of the issue is Spider-Man with Melvin, and then Will o' the Wisp chasing him after him, trying to get this guy. So they fight, and then the news gets involved, and they're on top of buildings, and it's classic Marvel action. And then Spidey tricks Will o' the Wisp into going into this. What is this thing called?
It's like a power plant of some sort. It's got these like giant magnets in it that kind of scramble up his particles. Right.
And so basically, so now Tarantula's got Melvin tied up webbed to the top of this building, and so there's more fisticuffs, and they're cutting away to newscasters watching and stuff. And basically, Will o' the Wisp has the opportunity to kill this guy, but he decides not to. He decides just to smash the building, or smash the... what's that called? The chimney there. And then basically he decides he's going to let him live. But then Tarantula is devolving more and more into a spider. And so his brain, Will of the Wisp has no effect on his brain. He can't do anything. So basically there's more fighting. And then what happens? The cops, almost like King Kong, they see Tarantula. They shoot their guns at him. And then Tarantula falls off the building and lands splat on the ground. Actually, thud on the ground, and obviously dies. And then that's pretty much it. Will o' the Wisp talks with Spidey, takes off, and then that's pretty much the end. Then they wrap it up. So yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. We're going to start with our special guest this week. V, what did you think of Amazing Spider-Man 236, sorry.
Yeah, 236. You probably shouldn't have started with me because for whatever reason, I read these in reverse order.
Oh, okay.
And this was the last... I can tell you what I thought. This was the last one I got to.
Okay.
And I rushed through it, and boy, I did not like the art at all. And the art kind of like, you know what? I don't have a lot of time, so the heck with it.
Well, what's funny is it's actually your main man, John Romita Jr., who's the penciler. But I will say something that Mike Dell pointed out, that at this point in his career, John Romita Jr. was not doing full pencils. He was only doing layouts. So if you look at the opening splash page of the tarantula coming through the doorway, I love that shot, like the gigantic hand in the foreground. That's an example of, that's clearly John Romita's work. But I think that because this is inked by Frank Giacoia, who's not been inking Spider-Man lately, I'm only guessing that maybe that's why I didn't like the art, because the inks were a little bit sloppier than usual. Do you think that's what it was?
No, it was a little bit of everything. Like, I didn't like the way it was... Yeah, you're right. The way it was penciled. I didn't like the way it was... Coloring is the same as penciling?
Well, no, color is the color. And then pencil is the first stage where you're actually just drawing the figures. Mm-hmm. Inking is the black inks that are outlining that and adding shade and texture. Yeah. And then the color is literally just the color. 3 completely separate steps, yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't like the color either. You know what? And I hate to say this, it looked to me like the kind of comic you would get for free at a kid's meal with a Burger King meal.
You mean because of the color?
Yeah, well, the color, and it just, I don't know, the art was just kind of, I don't know, it was kind of basic. Everything was so spaced out, like, I don't know. I complain a lot about messy panels, but this one was just, it was like too clean.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, now granted, the recolors that are done on a computer could make it look a little bit more like a coloring book. I know what you mean.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It looks like a coloring book.
So, Jolie, what did you think of this issue? Let's start with the art.
Yeah, it was good. It's really funny because aside from there being a lot of blank space, I found some of the compositions kind of messy.
Yeah.
Even though Romita did the layouts, like the one where O The Wisp is describing what happened with him and Tarantula falling into the water, I thought was like kind of amateur for a composition.
Okay.
It was just not well done at all. But I don't think it was aided by this poor coloring job. So it's not the worst. It's not the worst art I've ever seen. I actually like when the colors are flat like this.
Okay.
But I don't know. I guess it wasn't remarkable.
Okay. Josh, what do you think of the art?
Yeah, I think that for the most part I liked it. There were some spots where it felt a little bit like jumbled, where I didn't like 100% understand what was going on, or like what the layout of everything was, which is pretty different from what John Romita usually does, Jr.
Sure. Yeah.
Again, like Jolie said, with the flashback of him kind of saving the tarantula out of the water, or like, I guess, knocking him out and then pulling him out. There's just... I feel like it just wasn't as strong as previous issues. Although, I will say, I think that story-wise, this is the better of the 3.
Yeah, I personally had no issue with the story. I thought it was really good. Before we move on to the story, I wanted to point out a couple of really good panels. On digital page 15, the shot at the bottom of the tarantula kind of in front of the guy, I think that is a great shot, personally. I think he's really good at doing monsters like this. Like, he did a really good redesign of Mephisto on Daredevil that I thought was really cool. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, yeah, you could argue, I think if John Romita Jr. has a weakness, it's that one of the things he said is that his style is just inspired by what it takes to hit his deadline. So he's a known professional, like, he's never late. So maybe he's figured out ways to cut corners and sort of get things done on time. But I think there's definitely points where, the art stands out. And I definitely don't think it's any worse than the last run of issues, although it is technically Frank Giacoia did ink the last issue, so I didn't really notice a difference there. But because the last issue V reviewed, it was a different inker. Maybe that's why the art doesn't look as good to him. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about the story. I thought it was really good. Josh, you thought it was good. V, what did you think of the script?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is the one I kind of had no time to read, so I did not.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah. Just for the record, some of us are still working, right? Like, I'm working from home. V, I think you're working from home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not all on a corona vacation, as our pal Marshall likes to call it. But anyway. So, Jolie, did you want to talk about the story at all?
Yeah, I guess. Even though I had time to read it, it was a good wrap up to the arc. It wasn't like there wasn't anything that he did that was, that Spider-Man did that was like super remarkable. Like, I honestly, I don't really know what to say. Like, it's just passable. Mm-hmm. It's like he throws him into a bag. He throws him through a wall and into a bag. Okay, cool. But how did he even know it was there? It's just like a big fight scene. Mm-hmm. So, like, things like that kind of, it's a fight scene, and he's trying to save the life of this Melvin guy, so he kind of like leaves him on a rooftop. And these are already characters that I'm not super invested in, because they're already their plot was so poorly plotted before, like in the previous issues before this, that I'm the conclusion is like almost a relief.
Yeah, I mean, one argument I could say is maybe they dragged the story out a little bit too long, but other than that, I enjoyed it. Josh, what do you think? What's your final word on the story?
I think that if they maybe shrunk this down into 2 issues, it would feel better and feel like a more tight story. But by the time I'm reading this one, I felt like I've read it before, like somewhat, because the last 2 issues were very repetitive. Well, I guess these 2 issues are repetitive from the first, right? So I like the conclusion that happened here. I think that more is told, and you understand what's going on in this issue. I think that's why I like this one the best of the 3. But I think the thing that for me drags it down is the fact that we've seen this story twice in the last 2 issues, and I'm just kind of like, let's wrap it up, right?
Yeah, I agree. In fact, the fact that Peter Parker is sort of also wrapping up its storyline this month makes me wonder if there was a plan behind the scenes to sort of wrap everything up at the same time and then launch into the next storyline. So maybe they dragged this out an extra month just to make it match up with Spectacular.
Possibly.
Could be. But overall, I'm going to agree, of the 3 Spider-Man comics this week that we reviewed, I think this is my favorite. So I will recommend it. V, will you recommend this or no?
I don't think my opinion counts on this one. I didn't read it.
Okay. Hey, I mean, George, unfortunately, doesn't do the show much anymore, but George is still here in spirit, right? Because, George never read the comics. Anyway, okay, so on to Jolie. Jolie, do you recommend the comic?
I recommend it to any artist who's currently working in the industry as an exercise in restraint when it comes to architecture.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I mean, this isn't the best art by Romita Jr., but it's still, to me, comic book art 101. But Josh, do you recommend it?
Yeah, I think I'd recommend it, especially with the other 3. I think it's stronger as a whole. I think that it definitely lifts up the other ones, but at the same time, it's so repetitive that I feel like you can read the first one and then skip to the third one and still understand what's going on. Because the second one, nothing like advances further.
Yikes. Okay. So. All right, so now we move on to Marvel Team Up number 125, featuring Spider-Man and Tigra. Josh, did you want to set this one up?
Sure. So, I mean, Spider-Man doesn't really have a whole lot to do at the beginning. We just see Tigra going to an audition. And Spider-Man is there also for this commercial that she's trying to film. He scurries off once she kind of makes a big deal out of it. And she does the audition. She leaves. Spider-Man tries to pick her up, and she says no. So then she meets up with the cop that she had met earlier and goes on a date with him. And this guy, I can't remember his name, comes and tries to start like picking a fight with her. Spider-Man follows him there, and both of them kind of team up to defeat this guy, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that once again, I think the problem with J.M. DeMatteis is he's got a lot of ideas. He throws them all in. He doesn't develop any of them properly. Yeah. There's an inconsistent tone. Like you said, Spider-Man really doesn't need to be in the story.
And he's kind of like shown as like a ladies' man too. Like he's kind of like, Beans, I'm not going to get the money from that gig, but at least I got to see Tigra again. Dang, she's smoking. Yeah. And then later on, he like asks her out and strikes out, and then like he follows the guy to the date, and like it just feels like Spider-Man just keeps showing up to pick up Tigra, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, V, what was your impression of this one?
Actually, yeah, you're right. There were a couple issues with the story, but I liked it. I felt like I was always guessing because I've never seen Tigra before. So her first splash on the first page, I enjoyed it. I'm like, who is this? I like the art. The part where I've always understood Spider-Man, like if something's coming at him, if there's an impending danger, he gets his spidey sense. But
Right.
it was kind of out of the blue, like, hey, what's that guy doing? My spidey sense is tingling. He's going to do something bad soon. And then he just follows him. So there's a little plot line hole there. But I don't know. I kind of liked it. And him being a ladies' man, yeah, he strikes out. So not too much of a ladies' man.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he tries again, like even in the midst of the fight he's trying to get with her, and it still doesn't work. And he ends up being a bother to her. I don't know. I actually like this story.
Okay, so you know what's funny? Before we move forward, I just want to say I just realized there's a backup story with Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch, which I did not read. Did anyone else read it?
Loved it.
Oh my god, I didn't even know it was here.
I really liked it. I was gonna say, like, I enjoyed that better than the Spider-Man Tigra story.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Jolie, first, what's your impression of the first story?
That was god awful. It was like one of the worst things I've ever read. A woman with no agency, like written by men, obviously. So it's. I'm sorry. Do we swear on this podcast? I can't remember.
Well, I just have to mark it as explicit if you do. But anyway.
Well, it's terrible. Even she is trying to navigate this world of like superheroism, and it's between like dates. It's like why does she gotta be a slut though? You know, like like, is this the only? It doesn't make sense for me. That this is sort of like this on top of the side gig, this is the other story that she has. It's always she's a powerful non-human, I'm assuming, but somehow is still the story still revolves around the need for men. I don't know.
You know what, Jolie? I found that strange too. The fact that, like, at first I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, she's going after this cop that she just saved. And then it was almost kind of ruined when she's like, oh, he reminds me of my ex. And it's just like, what the heck? Yeah. Like, she's looking to, like, absolutely get the same guy. Like, it was strange.
Yeah, it's like, it's cute if she is in control of her femininity and she like just, hey, if I jumped on guys all day like this, I'd be kissing cute ass cops too. But like, but then it becomes a story about her turmoil with men, and it's like, oh, okay, so just like all characters for some reason, including Spider-Man, it like the story just becomes another vehicle for like romance that no one is looking for. Especially not the reader, especially not me as the reader.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
The thing is, I made a note here, and as I was reading it, I think I know what the problem is that, once again, it seems like J.M. DeMatteis is like, I want to tell a cool Tigra story, so I'm going to bring her into this comic, have Spider-Man be there at the beginning, then in 2 seconds, he's like, you know what, I changed my mind, I don't want to be in this. So really, he didn't need to be in that opening scene. That was ridiculous, right? So he takes off, and then we have this guy come back that was involved in her origin, and they flash back and have to explain who he is. So it's kind of just a way to wrap up a subplot. Like, I think a better way to do a team-up book is to be like, okay, this is Spider-Man, this is his personality, this is Tigra, this is her personality, and then to do a story where you don't need to read anything else to know what's going on. All you need to do is to see how they play off each other, right? Wouldn't that be a lot more interesting than just, back in Defenders number 51, this happened, and we're going to wrap that story up and explain how it is resolved. I think that's the key problem with all these Marvel team-ups.
Yeah, and the way that they play them off of each other is he's constantly talking about how he can't concentrate because she's so attractive.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'm going to close this book now. I didn't close it because I knew there was a Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch team up later, because I was like, oh, they were on the cover. When did they come in? And then I realized there's a whole nother story, and then the whole other story was like way better than this one. So I'm with Josh on that one.
Okay, so you know what? So you want to jump to that? So V,
You know
did you
what?
read the backstory?
Can I just mention one more
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, sure.
I did. I feel embarrassed to say I enjoyed the story, but I'll tell you that there was a low point for me, and I'm reading it, and you mentioned it, Mike, when she explains the origin of why this guy is after her. I'm just like, all of a sudden it gets really messy. The art gets messy. There's too much dialogue, and I'm like, oh, I just kind of skipped it. And then when you turn to the very next page, boom, in comes Spider-Man, and he's like, this vengeance from beyond the grave routine is so played out, it's not even funny.
Yes.
And it's like a disclaimer. It's like,
right.
I'm not sexist, but, and then you say a sexist thing.
Right,
this
right,
is the
good
same
point.
thing, except done in reverse. Like,
Yeah.
that was the low point for this story for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, the only good thing I could say about it, and I didn't hate it. I don't hate any of these Marvel team-ups. At least it's a comic book. Like Jolie said a few weeks ago, it looks like a comic book. It reads like a comic book, so I can enjoy it on that level. But it's just not great. You know, there's nothing, and the way that Tigra is portrayed is offensive. Obviously, like we said earlier, like Jolie said. So yeah, definitely not. Again, I would read it again just because it feels like a Spider-Man comic book, but other than that, I can't really recommend this story.
See, I don't even think I would read it again because it's not, like, for me, if the story's not good and it doesn't work as a whole, then it's not going to be something that I go back and read again. Like, just because there's art on the page and there's bubbles doesn't, like, just because it's a comic book, it does not mean that I want to read it.
Well, let me clarify what I mean.
Like,
yeah, when I say it's a comic book, I mean, like, it's a comic book the way that 99% of current Marvel and DC comics are not comics, in that there's storyboards for a movie. And this, at least, because I do like the art, you know? Like,
Sure.
at least it feels like a Spider-Man comic. And J.M. DeMatteis is a decent writer, so some of the dialogue is good. It's just that the story is just all over the place. It's like he just doesn't know what he wants to do. Yeah. So, yeah.
I guess for me, it's just like all I've gotten out of the comic. Like I feel like I'm not going to get anything else out of this.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's not something that I would probably ever read again.
Yeah, I probably won't read it either, but let's actually jump to the next story because, like I said, I did not read this one, but Josh, you did, right?
Yes, I did.
So what happens in this backup story?
So we start off the backup story with this movie set. And this director found this like old book from this weird library he found, and he used one of the like spells in that book for the movie. So this woman is playing this witch. She says this spell, and it summons this demon from another dimension. And Scarlet Witch is walking by as he burst out of the building, so she's kind of there. Again, we get another classic water tower being destroyed to fight the villain.
Yeah.
I feel like we could play a drinking game with that, where we just pick random comics, and then every time there's a water tower, we take a drink because it just happens so much.
Good idea.
But she saves this man who's running away from the danger, and it turns out to be Wong. So the two of them head to the Sanctum Sanctorum, meet up with Doctor Strange, and the two of them figure out a way to stop this guy. Doctor Strange kind of like goes up to him, and he uses the Eye of Agamotto to understand what the demon is saying, and the demon is just scared and wants to go home. So he ends up opening up a portal and sending him back home, and then the issue's done. It's really fun.
So you said you... Yeah, so you like... Oh, so this is... Just so everyone knows, it's actually a different writer. It's Joe Duffy, who's on my Facebook friend list, and who is the writer of Star Wars, one of the main writers of the Marvel Star Wars. Okay. That's what she's most famous for. Yeah, so you thought this was better than the main story?
Yes, I think so. For me, it definitely was.
And V, did you read this one?
No, you know what? I was clicking ahead. I got kind of confused, so I thought my computer glitched or something.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I didn't even get that far. I just stopped reading when the first story ended. I just didn't know. Even though they're on the cover, I didn't even notice they were on the cover. But yeah, so I didn't read it. So Julie, what did you think of the story?
I loved it. It's so cute. It also doesn't help that I'm totally immersed in a show called Magicians right now. So just like a lot of it is the same. It's the same type of magic that's used in that show that Doctor Strange uses, and that's kind of like really where I wanted Harry Potter to go, but they didn't. So I'm really digging the story. As always, you should never just open a book from a random junk shop and start reading the Latin out of it, because there is a pentacle on the front and all kinds of like incantations. You didn't think something weird was gonna happen, like the Goliath was gonna just magically appear and start destroying everything. So strange. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this is just, it's like ABC, totally fun.
Yeah.
And like it's like really cool. Like, the other stories that we've been reading for Marvel Team Up aren't as succinct as this one. It doesn't have to be like crazy. There's so much explaining that for some reason gets done on origins or backstories, but there's like one part where Scarlet Witch is like, "Oh, Doc, I didn't know you could fly." He's like, "I can't, but my cloak can," and that's it. They don't dwell on it.
Right.
They don't do 5 panels on the origin of the cloak of levitation. It's just, yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I'm a sucker for magic too, so the fact that these two are teaming up to kind of, and it just turns out that the Beast is confused and scared, is the sweetest thing ever. And
I really like it because it shows that kind of like other side of Doctor Strange. Or I mean, I guess even like Marvel Comics in general, like Doctor Strange always has like a different way of looking at things, even down to the like slow moments of this like short little story. Like Scarlet Witch is panicked. This demon's wreaking havoc, and he's just like, "Okay, calm down. We have some time. Wong, do you want to make us some tea?" And they sit down and they literally just chat about what's going on. And he kind of goes, "Okay, can you describe it?" "Sure. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I think it's got to be this. I know what I got to do." So they walk out and like they don't even really fight it. They kind of just like slow him down enough so Doctor Strange can go talk to him, and then that's it. They send him home. It's so great.
And like every good doctor, once he's identified the problem, he goes into the back of his office to research how to take care of it. Like the surgeon has not the surgeon minutia has not left his routine. It's so cute. I love it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Well, okay, so before we jump to the last one, let me ask this question. Of the 3 writers, Roger Stern, J.M. DeMatteis, and Joe Duffy, which one would you say did the best job this week out of those 3?
I would say Joe Duffy for sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I didn't want to be the first one to throw down for Duffy, but I'm in.
I don't know if maybe it was just because it was a short little story and they were able to kind of just tell a quick story without having like too much background knowledge and like flashbacks and whatnot. It was just so nice and clean, and you really get to know the characters without having to sit down and describe them. Like you know exactly how Doctor Strange works just by reading these couple of pages. It's great. And Scarlet Witch is a really fun hero, like an in-hero for this issue too. So yeah, this was fun.
So would you go on to read other Joe Duffy comics?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but
I think that I would be more likely to, like, if I was like, if I was like just going through random issues and I saw his name, I'd probably check it out, especially if he is writing other Doctor Strange or Scarlet Witch stories. I enjoyed this one enough that I would want to check that out.
She's actually a woman, Joe Duffy.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's J.O. Joe Duffy. Yep.
Okay.
So, didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know.
All right, so definitely the backup was probably better because I didn't read it and V didn't read it, but I'm going to assume you guys are right and say it's better than the main story. So, but we still, we don't recommend the first one, but we can recommend the backup story for sure. Yeah. So now we can jump to Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man 74. Jolie, do you want to set this one up?
So this is the stunning conclusion of Debra Whitman, the Debra Whitman arc called Fantasia. Pretty much, I don't even know. I honestly, I don't know why these two, the owl is still fighting with somebody, but Spider-Man opts to duck out of that because Deborah and her mental health are more important. So he's going to figure out a way for her to seem to get better. But because it's written by somebody and the writer doesn't care about Debra Whitman, it cuts to like Doc Ock and Kingpin kind of cutting a deal with each other to work together. And things kind of go awry. I don't know why. I don't get why. Maybe they just don't like each other, but like Kingpin throws Doc Ock out a window. No, maybe Doc Ock leaves. I honestly don't know. They don't get down with each other. Okay, let's just say this is probably the messiest conclusion I've ever read. There's so much junk happening that it's so hard to summarize because there's so much plot, subplot. There's just like it's like reading 3 subplots with no overarching plot.
I'll just say, without getting to the other parts of the story, the climax with Debra Whitman is the worst story I think we've read so far.
This is awful.
Yeah.
So in the interest of cleaning up the Debra Whitman subplot, he's told by her therapist that he should maybe speak to Biff, who, as we all know, went to high school with Spider-Man.
Well, actually, he pretty much says to the therapist, "I'm not helping you. Forget about it. I'll do this on my own." And he goes and talks to the professor, who then the professor says, "Talk to Biff." So like, Spider-Man, Peter Parker's pretty much like, "I'm gonna do this myself. I'm not gonna try to scare her," which does seem insane. Like,
well, clearly this guy's not a psychologist, right?
No, and like, I just absolutely hate that they took this character that was not written well and was written so inconsistently and said, okay, let's just give her schizophrenia. Let's give her some mental issues to write her out of the story. Like, they did not like talk about this at all until these last 2 issues. It had nothing to do with her character, and I thought that maybe they were just like saying, oh, people think that she's crazy because why would Peter Parker be Spider-Man? But no, in this issue, Peter has a line where he talks about the fact that maybe she does believe that I'm Spider-Man, or maybe this is her going back into another like mental fit or something like that. It's just like, are you kidding me? And then later on, we realize that she's schizophrenic because she was abused by her husband and she's married.
That's
like they just like really push her out. They're like, okay, we don't want to deal with this character anymore. She has an abusive husband who she's still married to. So she's got to go back to the Midwest. See ya. Here's the train. Bye bye. Go on, go get out of here, Dev. It's like, are you kidding me? Like,
and it was way too clean.
Yeah. V, what did you think, man?
Yeah, there was a lot going on. At first, I was kind of intrigued. Like, who is this girl? Like, what's going? Because I haven't read the previous issues, so yeah, what's going on here? Like, how did he mess her up? How come she thinks Peter Parker's Spider-Man? How did she find out? But then so much stuff happens. All of a sudden, now there's the Doc Ock battle that's going on with the owl, and I got to figure out what's going on here, and then Peter Parker goes back to high school. He's talking to Biff, and I'm like, well, didn't Biff bully him? Like, wouldn't Biff hit him, or like, get out of here? Like, it just didn't make a lot of that didn't make a lot of sense. And again, so much going on, it was hard to keep track. And then what's her name shows up too, right? Black Widow,
Black Cat.
Yeah.
And that seems to be like, at first I'm like, oh, okay, there she is. This will, turn into something. And at the end, it's like, oh my gosh, you're still alive. Like, it gets even more convoluted, right? Like.
Yeah, you know what? A lot. This issue. Go ahead. The
good thing is, I like the art. Like, I love this kind of art. Like, it's so like, I don't know. It just takes me back, right? It just takes me back to like that I can smell the page.
Yep. Oh yeah. See, now you can see the difference here. This is scanned. Like, this is like a scan of a comic book. Yeah. That's the difference. Whereas the Amazing Spider-Man was computer colored, right? This is the original comic, and even though technically the computer coloring is trying to mimic this, there's something to be said for the desaturation of the newsprint and the fact that you can see the dots, right? That's, I think, what makes this color look better. I agree. Yeah. This issue felt like an agenda. It felt like, okay, we got to wrap up this, we got to do that, and we got to bring back Black Cat. And they just shoved everything together. So that part I didn't like about it. This whole explanation of her backstory, it was, I don't know, sort of just cliched, and I don't know. To me, they destroyed her character completely. Because if you go back and read the earlier issues, she's not that bad. It's just that as time went by, the writers just didn't know what to do with her. So, unfortunately, this is what Bill Mantlo did with her.
They stuck her on a bus and told her to... and let her leave town.
Okay, you want to hear something crazy? She does not appear again for 24 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's her last appearance, that bus. And then she doesn't come back until Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 14.
Are you kidding me?
Where what happens is, remember when Spider-Man revealed his secret identity in Civil War?
Right.
What happens is she writes a book talking about how Spider-Man ruined her life. I've never read it, but that's apparently where she ends up. Yeah.
Amazing. I can't wait to read that now.
Wow. Yeah. You know what's funny? I was actually going to talk about the fact that the only other time I've read an issue with Tigra is in Civil War. Because she was a bigger part in that story.
I don't remember.
Okay, spoiler, I guess, for Civil War. But wasn't she the one that turns on Iron Man?
Well,
she was the double agent, I believe.
I thought that was Hulkling. It was, you know what? No, you know what? You might be right, but did that happen in the main book or was that in a spin-off?
I'm not sure.
Because if it was in a spin-off, I did not read it. I only read the main book.
Okay.
But okay, so let's just get back to Oh, one more thing. This comic also has a distinction on SpideyKicksButt.com. This is number 8 in the worst Spider-Man stories of all time.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely give that link to you guys in case you want to read it.
Yeah, actually, I would love to.
But yeah, let's talk about the art because V, you said this was you really like this art. Is there anything specific about it or any examples you want to talk about, or just was it the vibe overall?
Well, it's an overall vibe, but also the thing is, look for the positive and the bad. I know Jolie didn't like that confrontation between Kingpin and Doc Ock, but it's funny because he steals the canister, right?
Yeah.
Doc Ock steals a canister from him, and he doesn't look like he's too concerned, Kingpin. He's just like, whatever, hey, give it back. And then his real canister gets stolen, and the look on his face was great. Wow, all of a sudden he really does look shocked.
I agree with you. I think this might be the strongest part of the story for me as well, but I think that it suffers from not really having much place in the rest of the story.
Yeah,
it feels
standalone, right?
Right, it feels just like the MacGuffin that they need to bring Black Cat back at the end. It's just kind of there to be okay, yeah, this was connected to Black Cat. Remember, you like her. We got rid of Deb, so don't worry, Black Cat's back.
She's just been honestly, she's just been lurking around in the past 2 episodes, and now the payoff, her payoff, is greater than Deb Whitman's entire story in this.
Which sucks because at first she was written so well, she was genuinely an interesting character, and the fact that she was really rooting for Peter and stuck around with him, and he just kept letting her down, that would have been such a great moment for her to be you know what, forget you, Parker, you need to choose whether you go off and do whatever you do or me, and that could have been such a interesting story, and having another thing that Peter's got to juggle around and make sure that he is there for her, but no, they couldn't consistently write her and gave her a mental disability and ended it there. It's just, I don't know.
Well, one other factoid about Debra Whitman, she's the first girl to ever figure out Peter was Spider-Man. Because later on, Mary Jane figures it out, and then they say she knew all along, which is BS, but whatever. But Debra Whitman is the first one to ever figure it out, so that's kind of cool.
But does she? Because I guess she kind of does, but then once he takes off the mask, she starts laughing and is like, how could I ever think that?
I know, that was silliness.
Are you kidding me? And then he's swinging away. He's like, I wonder if she's gonna ever realize that I had to swing up there to get to her balcony. It's what?
Well, when I said it was
the said, hey, we know there's a plot hole
we know
here.
this is ridiculous.
We're just going to tell you what it is.
I know. Well, when I said it was the worst Spider-Man story, I mean, it's not the worst, but it's the worst. That scene is the worst scene I think I've read so far. That was garbage. That whole climax. I thought the art was good. I think it was a little bit inconsistent. Like, I think Jim Mooney obviously always polishes it up nice. And Bob Hall, we've come across him before. He's also the artist of Squadron Supreme, or at least some of the issues. He's definitely a good artist. But here, it definitely feels like it's early in his career, and the art is inconsistent. But it definitely has a classic feel to it, though, and Jim Mooney's inks really help. So overall, I mean, when I said before that, hey, at least it's a comic book, that still applies. Like, I would read this again because I like Bill Mantlo, I like Bob Hall, I like Jim Mooney. But, I mean, as an actual story, I don't like this story. I hate this Debra Whitman stuff. I think it's garbage. So, Jolie, what is your overall opinion of this?
It gets a 3 out of 10.
Yeah? So you don't recommend it?
Well, no. Do you know what? No, I don't even want to recommend it for the brief backstory that Debra did get. That's the only thing that I was interested in. But even then, it was just like garbage. It's like, oh, she's a battered woman. We're doing nothing to help this woman. Her character, her plot, nothing. But anyway, I can just hear Josh melt.
Oh my god, I hate it so much. Like, there's so much. There's so many other things they could have done with this character. Why not like give her the satisfaction of being right? Like, you know what?
Yeah.
You lied to me all these years. I can't do this anymore. Like, I've been in abusive relationships, but that's nothing to what you've put me through. And have her leave on her own terms. Like, you still write her out and she's gone, but, like, at least you don't, like, just diminish this character to, like, an abused, like, wife that has, like, no actual story. Like, it just...
Right.
Like, if you were to summarize her entire arc, like, what would you even say? Like, she's pushed around by Peter and finally leaves and, like, gets out of his life once she realizes that he's also abusing her like her husband is. Like, what else is there, like, besides that? It's just, oh, man.
I forgot to mention the sort of new subplot reveal of Biff. I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know. That whole thing, like, just came out of nowhere. And again, I like Bill Mantlo, but that was really bad.
What was the side plot? I was so angry. Did I miss something important?
Well, because this is a new revelation. The fact that Debra Whitman was married is a new revelation. Then the fact that Biff and her knew each other in college, that's new. And then, he breaks through the door and the husband's beating her, and it just, that whole thing was just ridiculous.
Also, aren't they in college now?
Yeah, I don't know how many times they've been in college. Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
Sure. And then, weren't they also dating? I don't remember them breaking up.
I don't know if they officially broke up, but it's kind of ambiguous. Like, everyone's relationship is ambiguous in this comic, so I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
But I will say the one good thing that I really enjoyed about this was on the last page, the first panel on the last page, we have Spider-Man kind of recognizing Black Cat's voice. And we see like a close-up of him, and all the buildings are upside down because the panel before that, he's actually hanging upside down. So like it's almost like the panel itself is upside down.
Good eye.
What it would normally be. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that.
Smart. Let's Bob Hall all the way. V, do you know anything about Black Cat?
Not too much. Actually, I think the last time I was with you guys, it was a Black Cat team up.
Oh, okay.
That's right. It was. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think she's a cool character.
That was kind of a fun story. I remember liking that one.
Jolie, are you familiar with Black Cat?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's cool. I've always liked her. I mean, she's kind of just Spider-Man's version of Catwoman, but she's got a completely different personality than like Selena Kyle. So I think she's cool. And also, as I pointed out on Facebook this week, she actually appears in the the 1981 Spider-Man cartoon, the solo cartoon, voiced by the same woman that did the Baroness in G.I. Joe. So if you're interested, she's in that. And she was also in... Amazing Spider-Man 2, one of the, what's the, Andrew Garfield. She was actually in that.
Right, she was played by
someone famous.
Jyn Erso, the girl who played Jyn Erso in
Yes!
Rogue One. What's her name? Felicia.
Felicity?
Yeah, she plays Black Cat, but she doesn't actually put on the costume. But she is.
Her name's Felicity or Felicia Day or Felicity.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Felicia. I don't know.
No, it's Felicity.
It's Felicity? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Felicia Day's a redhead. Felicity.
Right, okay.
Oh my goodness. Rogue One. Jyn. Hold on. Let me just.
Well, while you're doing that, it's just too bad they used such a good actress for this bit part, and now she. I mean, it'd be kind of weird to bring her back, but she would have been great as Black Cat.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like they were obviously like planting the seeds for
the next movie.
The next one. They did that with another character. BJ Novak played a character who was supposed to be another villain. Oh, what's his name?
In Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look it up.
He's the son of the guy that's in the wheelchair, and he like ends up being like mutated, and he's got like the weird like mandibles that come out of his back.
So somebody called Alistair Smythe?
Alistair Smythe, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Does he have a villain name, though? I can't remember.
I can't remember. I think maybe they just call him Smythe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do remember him, yeah.
I don't even remember this movie. That's sad. It's a Felicity Jones, by the way.
Felicity Jones.
Yeah. Okay, so that wraps up this episode.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to say. I mean, this has been, I guess, an uneven week of Spidey comics.
Yeah.
V, how do you compare this week's batch to the last time you were on?
Well, last time I think every story was great.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoyed all of them.
Yeah.
I think
This
we
has
talked
been a mixed bag.
We read the first issue with Cloak and Dagger when you were on.
Yes.
correct?
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was so good. I think that's still one of my favorite issues we've read so far.
I agree.
Fantastic.
I agree. Jolie, how does... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, no, I was just going to wrap things up.
I was just going to say, Jolie, how does this week's batch compare to the last few weeks?
It's we've gone from satisfactory to dissatisfied.
Yeah.
I mean, the first Spidey was not bad at all. Amazing, still good. Team up. Skip the first story. But that Debra Whitman, I'm just gonna start a campaign. I'm just gonna write a comic about her. If that's what it takes, I'm just gonna do it myself.
Hey,
But
and
yeah.
Jolie, just so you know, you kind of swayed me on the Tigra story. I see the issues with it now.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, well,
that's what I mean, though. I'm kind of with you, V, where I did enjoy it while I was reading it, but when I think about it, it's not a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so there you go, folks. Another episode of Here Comes the Spider-Cast. We do a different batch of Spidey comics every week. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, why don't you guys check us out over on Spotify or Apple Podcast at The Comic Book Syndicate. You can also find us on Facebook there. And at Twitter, we're called @Comic Syndicate. We want to know what you guys think about the issues that we're reading and the podcast itself. So please leave us a review or comment wherever you can. And we want to keep that conversation going.
All right, and we once again want to thank G.I.Jolie and V for joining us. We'll hopefully have you on again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So until next Monday, this has been Here Comes the Spider-Cast.